All right, so this is the basic setup for most of your GE anesthesia units. This here is the Avance CS2, which the ACES CS2 and the regular GE ACES systems are very similar. One of the first couple things you want to do going to the machine is you want to remove your vaporizers. Your vaporizers, how they remove depends on what make and model you have, so that may differ. If you have any issues, you can speak with your CRNAs. The other thing you want to do, first thing, is come to the back of the system. You want to make sure that your N2O is disconnected and removed from the system. That way there's no chance that any nitrous can get to the patient. You also want to make sure you have backup O2 and air cylinders and that they have pressure in them. Then next you're going to come to the machine. You've got just a few basic connections you want. You've got power you'll want to plug into. Most of these machines run off battery, but you need to make sure the battery's charged. You've got your standard O2. Depending on what connector ends your hose has and your facility has, will determine what you need to use. This is just a screw-on type, so we're going to screw that on. And then you got your air. You need to make sure your air is connected. And the next you want to make sure is for your scavenging. This is very important because if you don't have active scavenging, then it could cause the system to read a peak pressure, which will throw off your volumes. And this particular one already has a white connector on it. Typically, standard scavenging has a purple hose with purple end connectors. And if that's the case and you're going to connect it to a room with only wall vacuum, then you're going to need to modify the end given whatever that connection type is. This particular one, we only have regular wall vacuum, so we're going to connect scavenging to that. Next step would be to turn the machine on. There is a reference sheet that you can go off of that gives basic steps on how to do this, and one of the steps indicates that you should set the drive gas for compressed air. In order to do this, it requires you to go into service mode, and that's recommended for biomeds only with experience to go in and do so. So either work with your field service engineers or your trained technicians to do this. Upon boot up, the system will go through a series of self-checks, and it'll indicate if there are any issues on self-checks. If it's been more than 12 hours, then a checkout procedure is required by the user, which tests the circuits for leaks and any other issues. And we'll see that screen here in just a minute as soon as the self-test run. All right, we're fully booted, and you'll see that it gives you step by step what you need to do. You can do a full test and then just or individual test. And this is something, again, the user will do in between patients or every 12 hours. And then the next thing you really want to do is you want to flush the system with O2. That way it gets rid of any vaporizer particulate, because you don't want any of that going to the patient because they could have a severe reaction to it. For this particular machine, you can do a couple different ways. You can press this alternate O2 flow control, which will activate the setting, and then you can increase your liters per minute just to send a source of fresh gas to the system, and then in turn it goes through the system and evacs out the vacuum. You can turn this off, you just end it, and then you're done. Another method would be to take your patient's circuit, plug it. In this particular instance, I'm in bag mode. You can press and hold the O2 flush, and again, it sends O2 through the system, flushing any vapors or particulate out. And then I personally would recommend you switch over to ventilator mode and do the same thing, because all gas flows through the bellows. So you want to make sure that you're flushing and flushing and flushing so that there's no chance of any of it getting to the patient. But when you go into the vent mode, it will start to vent. So then you have to go back to bag and you have to end the case. And then there's another way to bypass the scavenging, but it's highly recommended if you have access to suction that you use that, because that's how the machine's designed to function. In order to bypass it, if you have a room with no wall suction at all, you remove the scavenging hose and the scavenging bag. And then that's where it's very important that you have an HME filter or a bacterial filter on the expiratory port of the machine, because when it goes through the system, it will be evacuating out to atmosphere. Another thing to note is when you do the O2 flush, you should remove this canister just while doing the flush and then place the canister back on, because this system has to have the canister for a couple reasons. One, it filters out CO2 expelled from the patient, and two, if without it, it can cause a leak. So you want to make sure that you have that canister on there. And then this canister by the user will have to be changed periodically, and you usually can tell when it gets saturated because these rocks will turn purple. But that, for the most part, is your basic setup. It's going to vary from model to model, but in the GE family, it's pretty much the same, just a few different variations on how this vent engine's set up. But if you have any questions, you can work with your anesthesia team. You can also work with your GE reps or whoever your local reps are, and they should be able to help you.